Hi guys, and welcome back. If you haven't already watched my first video in regards to why GME is ripping in the after hours, then I suggest you watch that prior to watching this video so that you understand the difference in different types of stock split and the fact that GME is having a dividend stock split, because that is the basis of what I'm going to be discussing in this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Okay, guys, I'm going to try to read through the article before I comment on it, because I've done this recording like 3 times already and had to delete it because when I'm trying to explain it with the actual numbers, I'm finding it's confusing to even say. So I can imagine if you're listening, it's very hard to even understand. So when we get to the talk about the shares in the split, please realize that this was based, when he wrote this, on a 2-to-1 split. The split is actually going to be, you'll receive 4 shares for every 1 share that you own. So we're going to have to just double it up to do the math, okay? But let's just read it the way that he has it written here, and then I'll try to touch up and explain anything, but I'm going to go through it first. So here we go. This is put out by Blade Ace, and it's an explanation of why a dividend and or share split will destroy anyone short selling GME. And guys, I was looking for examples online before I decided on this one, from Investopedia and from other sources, to try to see the best way to explain a stock dividend split to you and how it benefits GME. But GME has a unique situation, so I really feel that this is the best explanation that I can find, and then I'm going to tweak it and add to it afterwards to hopefully make it all make sense to you. So let's see if this works. And if not, please comment below on what you still need clarification on. And even if I don't respond to you directly, I will create a video that answers your questions. Okay. So issuing a dividend will hurt short sellers to the extent that they've sold naked shorts. And this is the problem, guys, because on Investopedia, it does not discuss, or on any other sources that I was finding online, it does not discuss naked shorting. Okay. And I couldn't find it trying to get info on that, and it's not there. So this is why we have to look outside the box. So a 1 becomes 2 stock split will hurt short sellers to the extent that they've artificially lowered the price. Again, we have a 4-to-1. The idiots shorting GME have sold a lot of naked shorts and artificially lowered the price a lot too. So it will hurt a lot. I have made substantial edits to correct errors on my part. Thank you to the commenters who have corrected me. So guys, this has been edited by Blade Ace, which I'm sorry if I didn't give credit to the person who wrote this. This was not written by me. This is written by Blade Ace, guys. So, a few hours ago, he posted a thread explaining GME can now issue a dividend if they want to. In the comments, multiple people asked what the impact this would have on the short sellers. So he decided to write another post explaining it. And he linked the 2 pages that from Investopedia that explain the same points he's explaining here. And all he's done is to apply these points to this unique situation with GameStop. Because Investopedia explains that dividends and share splits don't usually hurt short sellers, but reasons they aren't usually painful for short sellers don't apply in the case of GME. And that's because, again, guys, they do not talk about naked shorting, okay? In short, a dividend only F's short sellers if they have sold naked shorts. A stock split only F's short sellers if they have artificially lowered the price of the share they've sold short. When you're naked shorting, guys, you're essentially artificially lowering the price of the stock, because it's like you're creating shares that don't exist really, and increasing the float essentially, but not really, because it's not showing that. So you're not affecting the market cap with that, if that makes sense. So anyways, usually dividends and share splits are fine for short sellers, but in our case, there are a huge number of naked shorts, and the price has been artificially lowered by a lot. So in this case, a dividend and or share split will absolutely screw over anyone's short. If you'd like a longer explanation, let's get into this further, which, guys, you need the longer explanation. So, dividend. If someone has sold a shorted share, they have to pay the dividend to the person they borrowed the shorted share from. So, guys, remember that. If you short a stock, you are responsible for that dividend, okay? So if I'm short GameStop right now, and every share that I've shorted, I'm responsible for the dividend, which is essentially 3 additional shares. Again, the price is going to be split into 4. So, essentially it's the same price, but the problem becomes when you've lent out to more than one person, okay? So, however, if you've borrowed less shares than you have sold short, well, now you're paying the dividend for those naked shorts too, which is fine because no one would sell shares they haven't borrowed. But let's say some idiot had got themselves into such a situation. How would that play out? So, if company X, Y, and Z has done something absolutely retarded, like borrow 50 million shares but sell 500 million, well, now it's got a problem. GameStop is paying 50 million dividends, but 500 million dividends need to be paid, and company X, Y, and Z has to pay the 450 million extra dividends. So for every dollar GameStop spends on a dividend, they force the short to spend $1 for every naked short they have sold. Link to further explanation in the comments that may be helpful. Okay, guys. If this happens alongside lenders recalling their shares, unfortunately for company X, Y, and Z, it gets worse. The people who lent company X, Y, and Z the 50 million shares may also want to recall their shares if a vote is happening. So they will recall the shares they let company X, Y, and Z borrow, and now that company has to return the 50 million shares it borrowed, so there are 500 million shares owed dividends. Company X, Y, and Z has to pay the 450 million of these dividends and has to return the 50 million shares it borrowed. This is already a big enough mess to launch our rocket, but it actually gets even worse again. It's not just the 50 million shares loaned to company X, Y, and Z that are being recalled. Throughout this process, people have loaned shares to company X, Y, and Z that were already borrowed shares previously sold by that same company. These people didn't know they were loaning shares that had already been borrowed. They just thought they were normal shares. So they recall their shares to vote too. Oh dear. Now company X, Y, and Z is on the hook for all of these dividends and even more shares, all at the same time, just because Cohen issued a dividend and shareholders want to vote. So he just put an edit that he made some changes to this because of the dividend situation. So share split. If someone has sold a shorted share and there is a 2-for-1 stock split, again, guys, this is a 4-for-1, but I'm going to read the examples the way it is so that I do not confuse anyone. 1 share becomes 2, or in our case, 1 share becomes 4, and they now have to return twice as many shares, or in our case, 4 times as many shares. Usually, this is fine because the shares half in value when they are split and each share becomes 2 shares. There would only be a problem if the shares didn't drop in price when they doubled in quantity, which is fine because no one would short shares that people won't sell. But let's say that some idiot from earlier had shorted shares that no one will sell. What happens? Well, back to our example. Yeah, it's getting even worse for Citadel because if they have sold 500 million shares short and there is a 2-for-1 split, they now owe 1,000 million shares. Guys, in our case, it's twice this, okay? Before the split, there were 50 million real shares and 500 million shorted shares. This means that to close their short position, they need to buy 450 million shares back. They need to keep buying shares until only the correct number of them exist. The problem is that the correct number of shares has doubled, in our case quadrupled, but so has the number of short shares. So after the 2-for-1 split, again in our case the 4-for-1 split, there are supposed to be 100 million shares, quadrupling this one is doubling the 50 million, but in our case quadrupling. But there are 1,000 million, in our case 2,000 million. The number of shares Citadel needs to buy to close their position has gone from 450 million to 900 million. And guys, in our case, it's gone from 450 million to 1,800 million. Or 1,800,000,000, say that correctly. Remember that this isn't supposed to be a problem. Sure, the number of shares company X, Y, and Z owes has doubled, but the price has halved. Except the price only halves if people are willing to sell their shares for half the market price. Usually this is the case because they have twice as many shares, so they'll sell each share for half as much. Unfortunately, people aren't likely to sell their shares to company X, Y, and Z for half the market price because the market price is wrong. So because company X, Y, and Z has artificially lowered the price, the stock split has doubled, in our case quadrupled, the number of shares that company X, Y, and Z owes, but not reduced the price it can buy each share for. If the shareholders are unwilling to sell to company X, Y, and Z, their debt has just doubled. So guys, what he's trying to say here is essentially, we all know that everybody has a number in mind for what they think their share of GameStop is worth. Well, if you think it's worth X amount, despite the fact that it's had this split, we know that there's probably, Lord knows, allegedly millions of times more shares than exist, or hundreds of times, or whatever that number may be, guys. Who really knows for sure? I don't think that doing a 4-for-1 stock split is going to change the mind of many GME investors as to the dollar amount that they want when this thing eventually does decide to squeeze, right? We may own more shares, great, but I don't think that's going to, make it 1/4 the value of what anyone originally had in mind. But then again, comment below if it does for you, because maybe it does. But based on this scenario that, if allegedly there's millions of naked shorts out there, guys, then doing the 4-for-1 split only helps in the fact that now they have to scramble and come up with all these extra shares that they don't have, and it's 4 times as hard for them to do this, which in my opinion makes it even more valuable to us, because it's an even it's going to be even harder to get people that already won't sell the shares they own to sell what they have now, especially when there'll be people that couldn't afford to buy GameStop because they didn't get in early and don't have the funds, to buy it for $100 something a share, but they can certainly buy it, for $30 a share, $50 a share, much easier than they could at the $100+ a share, right? So, implications. So a dividend screws a short seller if they have sold naked shorts. A share split screws a short seller if no one will sell them their shares at half the pre-split market price. Unfortunately for anyone short selling GME, there are a massive amount of naked shorts, allegedly, and no one is selling for the market price, let alone half of it. Notice that these tools aren't going to kill short sellers in normal circumstances. They only hurt short sellers that are naked shorting shares for an artificially low price. Actually, it's worse than that. A dividend and stock split will hurt short sellers to the degree they have sold naked and at an artificially low price. Well, it stinks to be short GME then. The amount of pain caused by a dividend stock split is proportional to the amount of illegal screwing they've been doing. They sold a ton of naked shorts and lowered the price way below the price people are likely to sell for. So, for these reasons, a dividend and share split will absolutely obliterate the short sellers. If I were Cohen and I wanted to launch the rocket, I would declare a dividend and a 1 becomes 2 stock split. Well, guys, even better, he declared a 1 becomes 4 dividend stock split. So he says, note, see this comment for an explanation of why it is unlikely a dividend or share split will be used as a squeeze catalyst alongside the record date for the shareholders meeting. Thank you for the apes in the comments who have helped me edit this post and fix my errors. Sorry to those who read my post before the corrections were misled. Okay, guys, that was old, so I apologize. But anyways, this is the essentials of the article, and to make it, let me try to explain it this way, I guess. So, guys, the thesis behind GameStop and AMC and BBIG and many, many other stocks in the market is that there's allegedly a lot of naked shorting that has been going on. And when Cohen decided to do a stock split and make it a dividend stock split, it is going to put a lot of pressure on those shorts to sell. And guys, they don't have much time. If I'm remembering off the top of my head, July 21st was the at end of market is the date that the dividend split is going to occur. So July 22nd is the date it will start trading at that price. So this is only a couple of weeks for these shorts to get it together and figure out what they're going to do. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that, just change the math. So basically, for every share that GME is sold short, they're going to need to come up with 4 shares, guys, if they do not deliver it before this split. And everybody knows that none of us with GME have been selling. So if they thought it was hard to find it before, imagine trying to find it now with a bunch of masses of retail traders that will come flooding in when the price is substantially lower and they can afford to buy it. Something to think about, guys. Anyways, I'm not saying that, the squeeze will occur before that day. I don't know. Nobody does. But guys, the pressure's definitely heating up, and this is sizzling, that's for sure. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.